Danny was preparing himself for school, complaining about having overslept, and so changed into his ghost form to head off to school without having to deal with traffic, and was talking to Cujo about enjoying summer and heading off on a family vacation, saying that starting at 3:30, all they'll have to worry about is having a good time with their family and friends, making the ghost dog bark excitedly. We move over to the Amity Park Penitentiary as a light cuts on showing Freak Show in chains as the guys in white walk over to him, the former ringmaster mocking them for being ghost hunters who can't actually capture ghosts. Though they tell him to save it, he'd better be worth all the effort they had to go through to get him released into their custody from the plumbers. Freak Show then tells them to cut to the point, to which they tell him that he has knowledge of ghostly items and wanted to know about a gauntlet that had 3 gems alongside it, making said item appear. They tell him that it may be able to help eradicate all ghosts, including that of Danny Phantom. Hearing this, he'd become a little more cooperative, being released from his shackles. He then asks to try it on, to which they say that it doesn't work anyway. So the former ringmaster put the gauntlet on and began telling them about the gems while putting them into the gauntlet. The first was of animation, which brings anything they wished alive. Next was the gem of form, which can change the shape of anything he sees fit. The gem of creation was the final one, as it could make their dreams a reality. If pressed in the proper sequence, he could gain control over all of existence. The guys in white raised an eyebrow as Freak Show tells them that without the power source, it's basically just a metal glove with shiny rocks in it. As the ghost with the tattoos that escaped the previous encounter appeared, phasing up from the ground, dropping Freak Show's earring in his hand, letting him drop it into the slot and blast them with the gem of life, making the guys in white's weapons wrap themselves around the guys like constrictors. With a twisted smile, Freak Show thanked the ghost with the tattoos, calling her Lydia, and asking, shall they go, referring to her as my dear, indicating there's something between the two of them as they escape together. He did suggest they hit dinner and a movie while they enjoy their newfound freedom, followed by becoming ringmaster of all reality before laughing, as we could see that Lydia seemed to be smiling at that idea as well. We then cut back to Casper High as Danny and his friends were leaving the school from a bell ringing. They were talking about checking out different places. Tucker talking about a comic convention, Danny talking about a special trip off into Bellwood to check out the base in person, and Sam talking about some goth event being held in the Nevada desert, though Jazz, not paying attention to what she was doing, bumped into Danny. Danny tells her to watch it before picking up one of the books, saying that it was on ghost envy, and raised an eyebrow. She told him it was to help her prepare for college. He just handed her back the book, saying that he was gonna go enjoy the concert before walking away, Sam going with him, and asked how exactly he convinced her parents to let her go on the trip with them and his parent, to which he told her that he finally got under their skin. Suddenly, Danny's ghost sense went off as he sighed in annoyance and spotted the tattoo ghost changing into his ghost form. He tells her that he was wondering when they'd see her again. We hear Sam and Tucker yell out, seeing that some of the ghost tattoo bats had to grab them up. Our hero quickly started to take out the ghost tattoos by blasting them with his ghost rays. He'd blasted the tattoos that were terrorizing the popular girl Paulina as she called out, he loves me not, he loves me, as each one was blasted. She then gave him dreamy eyes and he sighed, telling her, he loves you not, I have a girlfriend, now get to safety, before flying away, disappointing her as she went to find a place to hide. Danny chased down the bad tattoos and found Freak Show blasting them before he could actually say anything to the group. This annoyed Freak Show as he blasted a gate behind Danny, making it wrap itself around him before changing 2 trains into mechanical soldiers and bringing them to life, with Danny escaping the fence and then fighting the mechanical monsters as he was grabbed by the leg in one of their mouths and shook violently before being thrown over to Freak Show's feet. The former ringmaster said that was odd. He'd commanded the machine to eat them. Guess he needed more practice. The guys in white appeared, ordering Freak Show to freeze, so he blasted blasted a cloud, making it into a giant snowman and dropping it onto them. He then told Danny that they were going to have a much bigger audience before he and Lydia vanished on their circus train engine. We cut to later on where Danny and his friends were looking at a book on the reality gauntlet when the band Dumpty Humpty was starting to play, but then we see the giant egg in the middle of the stage had grown eyes and roared out, having a yolk inside of it, with the band trapped there. Freak Show then appearing and telling them that Dumpty Humpty had a great fall, before Lydia snatched up Tucker and Sam, and Danny slipped under the bleachers, flying up into the air, telling the former ringmaster that show's over. We cut to Jazz saying that she had to write her thesis on ghost envy, as they hear that Danny Phantom was fighting Freak Show as it appeared on TV. We then cut back to Danny fighting a drum set turned into a spider by Freak Show as it fired a web at him, though he went intangible this go around instead of it sticking him to the football goalpost. Danny then blasted the drum set spider, blowing it to bits, with Cujo barking at Lydia and attacking her, giving Sam and Tucker the chance to escape, with Sam throwing the book she had at Freak Show hitting him in the back as she tried to grab and remove the glove, accidentally pressing one of the gems as Freak Show tells her to let go. Tucker then grabbing at it too, also pushing another of the gems, as they fly upwards, making Sam and Tucker slip, barely hanging on. Our hero then flies after them and helps his friends up, with Tucker pressing one of the gems as he did so, Sam pressing a second, and then Danny pressing a third, all by accident, while they were trying to get the glove off Freak Show. The former ringmaster telling them that they figured out the combination, now he was master of all reality, but Sam says that so long as they're holding on, so are they. Then tells the others to think of a place to hide the gem, which they did, making the 3 gems they were touching vanish. Due to the gems now being gone, the gauntlet gave off a surge of energy that knocked Sam and Tucker to the stage, and Freak Show being grabbed by Lydia just before he hit the stage too, using her tattoos to escape. We then see another crash down onto the stage a lot more violently, actually damaging part of it, as Danny got up holding his side, and he began to revert back, though he tried to keep his form, making him almost keep himself from reverting back, but then collapsed down just as Tucker and Sam had grabbed him from falling backwards, and he changed back to Danny Fenton. Seems the entire school saw that, as the newscopter had him on video, along with the guys in white who were flying overhead on jetpack. The guys were pointing weapons at them, but a rock smacks one of them in the head, as the football team were throwing rocks, trash, whatever they could, to get the guys to leave them alone, calling out that Danny was a hero, and soon the rest of the school joined in. Danny thanked his friends for their help and stood blasting the jetpacks on the guys in white, making them fly wildly before crashing down, and he, Tucker, and Sam were grabbed before being pulled backwards behind the curtain, as Dash shushed to them and peeked out the other side before waving them towards the parking lot, as the rest of the school were still attacking the guys in white. Valerie spots them leaving and yells out to the guys in white that Danny and his friends were getting away, as they all ran faster and hopped into the back of Dash's truck, and he started it up, driving off. The students that did hear Valerie began throwing stuff at her too, though she yelled that he ruined her life and cursed herself for leaving her ghost hunting equipment at home. Dash goes speeding down the road in his truck, giving it all he's got. Danny commenting about how they actually gave him a license, to which Dash fake laughs and tells him to shut up, taking them towards Fenton Works, as one of the tires was blasted out by the guys in white who were now chasing them in a tank of some kind, and they'd continued to drive on the rim before having the other 3 blown out as well. Danny musters enough strength to face the 4 of them out of the truck just before it crashed into a barricade they set up, and they hear Quan honk on the other side while driving, and Dash tells him that's Quan's ride, and the 4 drop down into the seats of the Jeep, Danny telling him to get them to Fenton Work. With a nod, they then speed down the road, making sharp turns and getting them to Danny's house, telling them to hang on, as they see a barricade set up around the front door, but Quan tells them to hang on, not even slowing down in the slightest, saying that this thing's got the armor of a tank and rammed into the barricade, vehicles and stuff, pushing them aside, and pulling up to the front door as Danny faced them all inside. Once inside, Danny's parents were there with his sister pointing blasters, but then saw that it was Danny and his friends, with a couple of extra kids, as the guys in white began trying to bust down the door. Sam telling Danny's family that they needed a way to escape. Jack threw them the keys to the ops center and telling them to go. They'll handle things here. They tell Jazz to go with them too, but she refuses, saying that she's got the perfect shot for the first guy that walks through the door. Quan and Dash grab Danny, who looked a lot weaker from all that had been happening around them, and began to carry him up the stairs with Tucker and Sam following after. We then hear the door breaking apart and blaster fire going off, with footsteps chasing after them. Dash and Quan then hand our hero over to his friends, telling them to go. They got this, punching their hands, and Quan grabs a vase, telling the quarterback maneuver 2819B, as they then started running down the stairs.